upon bubbly. Chosen Asian. Sipping upon bubbly. Let's fade that out. Visualizing the realism of life and actuality. Forget who's the baddest. A person's status depends on salary. And my mentality is money orientated. I'm destined to live this dream for all my peeps who never made it. Damn, boy, I'm telling y'all skirt. Y'all little rappers, man. I wish I could get a time machine. I wish I could get a time machine. One of them Doctor Who phone booth time machines or DeLorean time machines and take you young people back to the early 90s, mid 90s. Hell, we ain't got it. We can go back to 95 and y'all can hear some real lyricism. And y'all don't have to go skirt and all those other ad libs when you just lyrics, heavy, layered, profound. Wow. Anyway, I'm old, so you're gonna hear some old music. It sounds brand new to me, man, you know. That stuff sounds brand new. When I hear this, it's like I'm in the Buddha bar in Manhattan kicking it. So it's old to y'all, some of y'all, but to me that's contemporary music right there. It speaks to my soul. Anyway, started the day with Nas, and then went into Nas' protege, AZ, Sosa, Save Our Streets, AZ, and Sugar Hill. So, just get the blood flowing. This early in the morning, depending on where you are. I know I have to start being more aware that Bro Diallo show has an international audience. So when I'm talking, of course, this is the Bro Diallo show. Today is, July 10th in the year of your Lord, 2019. I'm broadcasting on Q4 Radio. Of course, you can hear me worldwide at the Q4 website, q4.org. That's QUE, the number 4.org. TuneIn apps, iTunes Radio. Also, if you are in the city of Chirac, state of Illinois, the sanctuary hypocrisy that we call Chicago, you can hear me on AM 1680. Local radio, underground radio, private radio, uncensored radio. Yeah, we are censored by the FCC, but at least our thought, our content, our analysis has yet to be censored. And you might notice if you've been following me on Facebook, or if you know people that follow me on Facebook, I'm done. I've been getting suspended from Facebook for nothing. I was on a 30-day suspension from Facebook because I made a post just talk about my troubles and my personal struggles for a minute. Because I am the people are me. So my struggles is y'all struggles is my struggles. Struggle all around. But I am a staunch anti-feminist. And the reason I'm anti-feminist is because, like Dr. King said, feminism has not lived up to the content of its creed. So, as a principle, I am against all integrationist movements, which feminist qualifies as. Integrationist movement seeks to elevate people low on a status quo within that status quo. They seek to elevate people within the status quo. But my conclusion is that if it's an overall unjust status quo, the only thing that integrationist movements succeed in doing is corrupting the very people who are fighting against it to integrate with it. But more on that later. It didn't live up to the content of its creed in terms of women's liberation. And I look at the feminist movement, what the feminist movement advocates for, and which is a lot of good things on surface. I mean, the feminist movement, like most other the civil rights movement, the gay rights movement, you look at the surface, they look really good. Like, wow, this is some good stuff y'all got written here. But just like all things, especially in Western society, in the United States, you look at the U.S. Constitution. You look at the preamble of the U.S. Constitution, written by slavers. All men are created equal and endowed by their creator. Woo, 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 woo. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there. The first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, good stuff. Well ahead of its time. Separation of church and state, brilliant. But like Dr. King said, it doesn't live up to the content of his creed. So pretty words on paper don't translate to just policies on the ground. So it's really hard for me to come out and say, yeah, I don't support the feminist movement. And a lot of sisters get mad at me because they say, oh, look at all the good stuff on the paper. Look at all the good analysis. Look at all these black feminism. Now they try to pretend like there's a such thing as black feminism versus white feminism. Now we got mocha feminism, latte, soy feminism. We got all these sectors or sectarianisms within feminisms, but whatever. When I'm like, yeah, you call it what you want, I look at the core. I'm a radical. So I look at all radical means is you look at the root. No matter what people bring at you, you want to understand the fundamental foundational drives for anything. You know, they also call it maybe dialectics, but I'm a radical. So I always look at the root. I don't care how nice something is on the surface. I don't care how many people who go along with it or try to reassure me that this is the thing. Yeah, I can't say it's the thing until I examine the core. But anyway, the feminism, you know, I don't support feminism. Sisters come to me and say, hey, how could you not support women's rights? I say, I do support women's rights. But all rights, what rights are you specifically talking about? Do I support women's right to join the U.S. military and an imperial army and to go overseas and mass murder people? Do I support the celebration of women elevating within the U.S. Military? The first black woman general of the United States Marine Corps? Am I rooting for or hoping for the first black Joint Chiefs of Staff, Secretary of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to have a black woman or any woman to run the U.S. military? Am I celebrating that there's a woman heading up the CIA? There's a woman heading up the NSA? There's a woman that we could have a woman running the Congress, Nancy Pelosi, who is a neoliberal. So no, yeah, I guess, I don't celebrate that. What about women in industry? Women CEOs? No, I don't celebrate women capitalists. I don't celebrate Oprah's billions. So yeah, the women having rights to join the military, women having rights and opportunity to go into the industries of America. Investment capitalist. No, I can't celebrate that. Do I support women's abortion? Yes. And I don't say pro-choice. I'm pro-abortion. I don't know why y'all play, oh, you're anti-choice, pro-choice. No, it's pro and anti-abortion. Chill. I support reproductive rights. But all of that is sullied. You get an abortion, and then you go off and bomb families in the Middle East. See how that gets sullied, how the lines get blurred? And so I say I don't support feminism because it doesn't challenge the status quo. It only seeks to integrate women into the status quo. But anyway, I'm talking about why I got suspended. I feel like I have to justify myself. But anyway, because of my position on feminism, my radical position on feminism. Now, there are segments or sectors of feminists that I do sympathize with, if not all out support. And that is the radical feminist, the anarcho-communist feminist. But the radical feminist, the truly radical anarcho-communist feminist, who do take positions that women should not be in the military, that men should not be in the military, and that the military should not exist. That don't want to become CEOs, but want to dismantle industrial and investment capitalism and want to tear down all multinational corporations, not become CEOs. Now, but those women are just like me, are out of the feminist movement and kicked out on the fringes. They aren't invited to be lecturers or visiting professors. They aren't celebrated like Maya Angelou and all these other integrationist liberal black feminists. You'll never see them sitting on a panel across from Bell Hooks and other prominent feminist voices. So there is a small sector, the 1% of feminists that are truly, that engage in feminism the way I engage in feminism, or as I call it, womanism. But anyway, because I have a a stance against the integrationist agenda of feminism, a lot of sexists try to hold concert with me. So if I articulate some of the things or go more into depth, you follow my blog. If you at Diallo Kenyatta, Tumblr blog, or you go to diallokenyatta.com and you see some of the essays I've written on feminism, might even label anti-feminist essays. That's your prerogative to call it that. But if a critical, accurate analysis of something makes me anti that thing, then I'm anti-religion, I'm anti a lot of things. I'm anti-government. I'm anti-family values. When it comes to pro or anti, what I offer is a critical, radical, if not humorous at times, analysis of things. And I let things fall where they may. And when I get new information, I apply it to my analysis. And that's kind of more complex because a lot of people like that line in the sand. They like things to be clear. They don't like complexity. They don't like nuance. Are you for this or are you against it? And it's kind of hard to be absolutely for something or absolutely against something. I don't care about being right or wrong, positive or negativity. I care about accuracy. And accuracy that can feed competent, rational action that will lead to productive outcomes. That's kind of my process. And all the other peripheral stuff, is it positive? Does it uplift my spirit? All that other stuff, I don't get bogged down with that. I'm in enough trouble already. Can't get over into those, what y'all call gray areas. So I'm not black and white, nor am I gray. It's more of a... But anyway, a lot of sexists, what I call Afro-sexists, which is also an oxymoron. Sexism is anti-black, it's anti-African. So a lot of Afro-sexists come to me and try to, hold common cause with me. Yeah, these women, feminists destroyed the black family. I've never asserted, because I don't see evidence of it, that feminists have destroyed the black family. Or the feminist movement has threatened the black family. I see evidence that capitalism, I see evidence that racism, white aggression, white pathology has targeted and threatened and upended the black family. I see evidence that sexism and patriarchy have harmed the black family. But I don't see any evidence that feminism... Now, feminism has done a lot of harm, but generally not to black men. Feminism has harmed black women because really it has distracted and derailed a lot of women from the more radical black liberation. It moved them from black liberation to women's integration, not women's liberation. But that's a whole nother discussion. But if a black woman wants to get on that path, go with the non-existent God. But anyway, so every time I say something, a critique of feminism or a criticism of feminism, I get sexists that come to me and like, yeah, we don't love these hoes. And I'm like, whoa, we do love these hoes. We enthusiastically embrace these hoes. We can't get enough of these hoes. This ain't no, we don't love these hoes over there. I don't know where you get that from. And so then I have to bump heads with the feminists and the sexists. And I'm like in between these two hostile factions, and which is not where I want to be. And so anyway, what this got to do with me, and they call me, I can't count. I get called at Ashy Hotep, and the same day on the same maybe Facebook feed or in the same discussion or debate, I get called, what do they call me? What's that word? What's that word they use for dudes? Whip dudes. I can't even think of it now. They always call me that word. A simp. Sorry. I don't know. It's so hurtful. I just put it in my mind vice and lock it away because it's so hurtful. I think I get called a simp and an Ashy Hotep. But anyway. So what's that got to do with me being suspended, my most recent suspension from Facebook? This guy came to me talking about feminazis. And yeah, these feminazis, man, yeah, we got to get these fem. And I'm like, no, there's no such thing as a feminazi. You can't be a feminist and a Nazi. So then I started to try to explain to this brother that that he was actually sexist Nazis, sexa-Nazis, or patria Nazis, that the Nazis were sexist, they were patriarchs. I mean, yes, they were patriarchal, they were sexist. And a lot of people are under the impression that the Nazis, because they believed in eugenics, would allow for abortion. But if you look at the actual details of the Nazi agenda, Hitler outlawed abortion for Aryan women. He only wanted abortion for the dysgenic races. He wanted forced sterilization and forced abortion of dysgenic races, of disabled people. But if you fit the Aryan model, then you not only were you not allowed to have an abortion, you were mandated to breed. Hitler literally set up breeding houses. He set up breeding stables for white women. Because as Dr. Francis Cress Welsing told us, they've always had a trouble with this genetic annihilation thing. My wife and I were just, debating our different, where we landed on this genetic annihilation. So actually, Hitler had traditional family values. So Hitler was more of a hotep than he was a feminist, in the derogatory sense of a hotep. I don't really like that derogatory sense, but hey, I recently learned that words don't have meanings, they have usage. Because if you look at the words' meanings and impact and weight, they evolve over time. Language is as organic as the bioorganisms that use them. You know how our bodies change, they evolve, devolve. Certain parts of our bodies get more or less usage over time. So language doesn't really have meanings as much as it has a usage. So even though I don't really agree with calling the Hotep title, it's useful in this context, in this discussion. But if you look at, let's say, and I always beat up on Dr. Umar, I'm less enthusiastic about clowning Dr. Umar now that I see he live and struggle. I said, he was running around lying, talking about he's the descendant of Frederick Douglass. And now I believe him because it looked like he lives in the slave shack. So he ain't descendant of Frederick Douglass. He's a Frederick Douglass reenactor. He's a Frederick Douglass cosplay. All he needs to do is get a salt and pepper beard and a rectangular afro, trapezoid afro like Frederick Douglass has, because he got the slave shack. He living like a barefoot slave. In that, but then he did tell us that he was moving to Wilmington, Delaware. So I'm waiting for y'all to show me the pictures of that move to Wilmington, Delaware. But I digress. But if you look at Dr. Umar, or if you go to Straight Black Pride and you look at the Irritated Genie, or these other prominent black Imalamu Baruti, if you go and look at their ideas, what they've listed in terms of what they advocate for the black community, they are very much aligned with what the Nazis wanted for white folks. Even in all the way down to the whole racial purity, the racial eugenics, breeding, the higher, and family values and morality, and the Nazi idea of manhood, broad-chested and strong-shouldered man up front, and a dainty woman, a dutiful, daintiful handmaiden. The Nazis, and so I was just trying to explain to this dude, it's ironic that you coming to me calling the feminists Nazis. When if you were a white man, you would be really good. You would totally fit into the Nazi paradigm. And only fact is you got nappy hair and Africoid features, as they call them, and dark skin. That's all I did. And then I went and looked up some Nazi propaganda photos that reflect that because they didn't just put out war propaganda. The Nazis had a lot of cultural propaganda. In fact, if you'll look, even in the United States, you'll find a lot more cultural and societal propaganda than you find of war propaganda. So there was like millions of posters all over the internet that the Nazis produced demonstrating the ideal family structure. And they literally have a woman sitting on, and this is one of the images that got me suspended from Facebook. There was a woman sitting on a porch, swaddling a child to her breast. And there was a strong man, big, strong, square-jawed Aryan man out plowing the field. So the man goes out and work, and the woman stays home and tends the home front. And so I'm like, this is Nazi propaganda. I said, you won't find any Nazi propaganda or any Nazi ideology that is consistent with what the feminists fight for. So I said it's really stupid that people who are advocating Nazi family values, Aryan family values, or Western Judeo-Christian family values are calling feminists feminazis, because there's nothing more anti-Nazi than feminism. And I'm not singing the praises. Like I said, I care more about accuracy. I care more about accuracy. And you can't find a black feminist that's cool with me. They don't like me. But I think if you're against something, the better way to either deconstruct that thing or to challenge or delegitimize that thing is to be honest about it. Because the moment you start making things up and lying on your opponent, that delegitimizes you, and that makes you a less effective opponent. So I at the very least, whether I agree with the feminists or not, I'm obligated to be honest. So anyway, I was sharing with this guy, trying to communicate with this guy to say, you should come up with something else. Even if you called them feminist Bolsheviks or femicommunist, because the communist movement, the communist ideology, not practice, but at least communist ideology, you can call them fema-anarchist, fema-Bolsheviks, there's a lot of ideologies that are more consistent with what the feminists advocate for. The fundamental feminist ideology of gender equality and things of that nature than the Nazis. The Nazis did not support gender equality. The Nazis did not support women's liberation. The Nazis were vehemently anti-abortion when it came to women under their tutelage. And you have Afro-sexists to this day that are like, I don't care about white women. They say, oh, I don't care if Bill Cosby raped that white girl. I don't care. So just the Aryans, they're like, oh, whatever happens to the women of dysgenic races, they don't care. So anyway, I guess, I don't know if it was the images or I just had the word Nazi too many times. But they flagged it. They flagged it. And I got suspended. And normally, many times I will say something critical of feminism and feminists, and that's when they flag me. But I wasn't even trying to be pro-feminist. I was working to be just pro-history, pro-accuracy. If you want to say I'm pro or anti anything, I'm pro-delusion. I'm anti-delusion, I'm pro-facts. And I don't know, they got me. They saw the images, but then I found out yesterday, after I was like less than a week into my 30-day suspension, and the suspension is lifted. And I didn't even know. Someone has actually sent me a message, and I attempted to reply to the message, and it went through, and I'm like, oh, wow, thank God Almighty. I was off Facebook suspension again. Off Facebook suspension at last. Thank God Almighty. So I'm back on Facebook, but I don't anticipate being there that long. That's why I'm like, I'm done going on Facebook Live for the Bro Diallo show. I'm not doing that again. But and then I have like this backup account, a secondary Facebook account, and that's suspended for other reasons. Because, and I ain't even gonna get into that because that's a whole nother, I could do a whole nother show on that one. Maybe Friday I'll bring that up. So, anyway, I ain't with that. But moving on. I want to talk about Hong Kong and China, but my time is getting short. Let me say this. Today is the birthday of Mary McLeod Bethune. If you don't know who Mary McLeod Bethune is, Google her. She should be remembered and acknowledged. So, happy birthday, Mary McLeod Bethune. Maybe I can get to that because there's more I want to say, but I don't like trying to cram things into the show. I want to say But this all ties in. I'm actually going to just let's get into the topic. Well, I want to say something about on July 8th, the story broke 2 days ago that there was this 16-year-old white boy who raped this 16-year-old girl. Uh, and he raped this young lady. They were both underage drinking. He plied this young lady with alcohol and raped her and videotaped the rape. And then for several months after raping this young lady, he sent it to his friends. And he put in the comments of the file or whatever that he shared, the video that he shared, he said, when your first time is a rape. And suggesting that he had lost his virginity. Well, I've never gotten clarity on that, whether it was the woman who lost it, the victim who lost and I shouldn't say women because it was a child. The girl who lost her virginity was being raped and it was her first time was a rape, or whether it was him losing his virginity and it was his first time as a rape. Because he just put, when your first time is rape. And he was texting this to his friend. And the young lady and her family said, could you please stop sharing this video of you raping our daughter? And the young lady said, listen, you're really ruining my reputation. Can you stop sending around this video of you raping me? And the guy responded and mocked the family and belittled the girl and continued to send the rape video to his friends. And he got around. So the family of the victim went to the authorities and they were like, well, this isn't just about sharing a video. This is a sexual assault. So they brought the charge, prosecutor collected all the evidence, they assigned a detective, the whole thing they should do. They generally do when it's an affluent white girl who gets raped. They don't do it when, poor and black women, native women, immigrant women get raped, but they do what they're supposed to do, at least. And so they brought the young man to trial, and the judge said, even though he committed this rape, he comes from a good school. And that the court should be lenient, the judge said. And the judge's name is James Torino. He's like a real douchebag. He's got like the slick back hair with the spikes on top, like the gelled out hair and the diamond earring, like a real douchebag judge. But this case happened in New Jersey and was tried in New Jersey. And he looks like a Jersey Shore judge. It looked like he should be judging wet t-shirt contests. Yeah, and I'm judging a book by its cover and appearance. Yeah, y'all better than me. Because I do those types of things. I'm not as enlightened as the rest of y'all. But he looks like a real scumbag judge. Just look his name up. James G. Torino. And tell me I'm wrong. It's Troiano. Douchey. Judge Douchebag. I'm telling you, he's got literally a big diamond stud in his ear. If I went before that judge, I'd just throw myself on the mercy of the court. There's no reasoning with this douchebag. But anyway, he said this guy comes from a good school, and I'm not going to ruin a young man's future over something, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's mad. And then they come back with that white privilege. Oh, look at this white privilege. And I told you, I'm sick of y'all with this white privilege nonsense, because here's the stupidity of white privilege. The white girl and the family members and the people who love and care about that white girl, where's their white privilege? It doesn't make sense. Where's their white privilege? All the people, and then when this young man, but they're actually appealing the case, so it's going to be retried. They reopened the case. And I think they're going to try him as an adult too, because he was tried as a minor because he was 16 when he raped that girl. And they about to give him some black justice. But anyway, so now I guess the white girl's privilege has kicked in, and now see that's why it's pathological. They will send it. They attempted. The judge, the prosecutor, the defense attorney The bailiffs, everybody involved attempted to send this psychopath. This white boy is a classic what they call sociopath. He suffers from what they started calling affluenza. Look that up. It's crazy. And they were going to send him off to college. They said he was a good kid. He went to the best school in the nation. He makes the best grades. And they were going to send him off to the best colleges to rape the best well-bred white girls all over America. Then maybe he would go on to become a CEO or a high-powered politician, Wall Street scumbag, and just raping all over the world. Like Jeffrey Epstein, or like Bill Clinton, or like Donald Trump. So that's not privilege. That's pathology. There are several scholars, prominent scholars, I might have to get some on the show because y'all don't hear me though, that talk about, that are doing research, hard, fast numbers. There's this guy out of Queens, New York. You know, I went to one of his, at the Racial Justice Conference, and his name escapes me right now, but he has all this data, tons and tons, you know, phone book size binders full of all this data about how racism is hurting white people. And yeah, and for every one white boy you see getting this fictional white privilege, every one white rapist, and you see Donald Trump trying to pardoning these murderous white boys. You got white boys that went over to Iraq, raped children in Iraq, and murdered their families, slit their throats, carving up bodies and collecting body parts as souvenirs. Some of these U.S. soldiers are coming back to the United States, and when they inspect their luggage, they're finding severed body parts, trophies, and souvenirs of Iraqis, Afghanis, South Sudanese. You got mercenaries in the Congo, Rwanda, that are out here committing heinous crimes, and they come back and they're pardoned. But they're not coming back to live in the hood. None of those guys live in Bronzeville, in my hood. They go live in Naperville. They go live in these affluent white neighborhoods, these sadistic, torturous, mass murderers. That's privilege. That's not privilege, that's pathology. So anyway, there are dozens of these cases. Every time I go online, I see y'all love posting cases. Look at this white boy that got off, raped a baby, got off. Look at this white boy that got off. And generally when they get off, just like black on black crime, white on white crime, as D. Gregory said before he died, people kill where they live. He said, if my wife pissed me off, I'm not going to jump in my car and drive all the way to the white folks' neighborhood and go on a rampage. People kill where they live. So the vast majority, in the 80 to 90 percentile of victims of white crime are other white people. Just like in the hood. We try to act like it's some pathological thing. But guess what? If you do the stats and you run the numbers on Asian people, the number one victims of Asian criminals are other Asians. The number one victim of Muslim criminals or Muslim terrorists are other Muslims. The number one victims of even white supremacists, even neo-Nazis. The primary killer of victims of Nazis are other white people who the Nazis claim they live for. Even if you look at the European wars, the number one victims of European wars are other Europeans. World War. It wasn't Europe versus Africa. It was Europe versus Europe in both world wars. And even though they dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, the majority of the people who got killed in all of that, including the Japanese, were white folks. Killed by other white folks. You kill where you live. So all this white privilege where white judges refuse to incarcerate white psychopaths and white sociopaths, white serial rapists and white pedophiles, and we got all these stories of these white pedophiles getting off, they go right back into their community. That's privilege? That's what y'all fighting for? That's what y'all want equality with? Word? So, I just think this again highlights. And I got this group of people that I started calling the what about gang. The what about gang is whenever you highlight the crimes and offenses of only, and this is the key word, prominent black men. So what about gang, they don't care about poor and working class black men. They could lock us up. You know me, you lock up bro Diallo, I'm broke, I'm poor, I'm a struggler, I'm a hater. I'm very resentful of billionaires, but I don't care what race they come from. I'm anti-billionaire. I'm anti-security in the bag. I am a socialist. And all that mess. So if something happened to me, it's just I had it coming. But you got this group of men, and there's some women among them, that I call the what about game. So whenever you highlight Bill Cosby as a serial rapist, R. Kelly is a serial pedophile rapist, when you highlight individuals, prominent people, the first thing they jump up and say is, what about the white rapists? What about the white men? They say, what about Harvey Weinstein? What about Bill Clinton? What about Donald Trump? He sexually assaulted women and he's in the White House. So, and then I asked him, are you asking that black male rapists be allowed to operate with impunity like white male rapists? Or do you want the same justice for the white male rapist for the... And generally, they don't like to admit it when it's laid out. They generally want the black, prominent black males to operate with as much impunity as white men. They don't just want to, when you think about equality and these black men who try to mimic white men of power. And I was just in Hyde Park. You go to Hyde Park, you see these black men, they smoking cigars, and they got these German beer mugs, and they really want to embody what they imagine, what the TV tells them wealthy white men do. They go out and buy the cars. They even go and marry the women. They try to get the same woman, the Kardashian. They try to get everything they see white men have. So they don't, it's not that they want white men, criminal white men, psychopathic white men brought down to justice. They want to elevate to the injustice. They want to be the dictators. They want to be the tyrants. They want to be the imperialists. They want to be the capitalists. So when they see, and they live vicariously through the black men who get up to that status. And so when they see a black man at that status that they aspire to be brought down a peg or get what I call, and forgive my crass language, but it is one it is. I can't incorrect what Paul Mooney calls the nigga wake up call. When you think you got the fiat that the white man got, you got all the same money, you got all the same cars, you smoke the same illegal Cuban cigars, and you got all the status, and you on all the TV screens, and you private jetting around to Dubai, and you got all the material stuff that the white man has. And you really start to think, you start to develop his mentality, looking down on black people, criticizing black people, telling black folks if we don't want the police to shoot us, we shouldn't steal pound cake. Yeah, I'm talking about Cosby. And all of a sudden it's like, nah, you can't buy your way out of racial oppression. You can have a highest consumption level, but you're still low on the racial caste hierarchy. So sometimes black folks get snapped into reality. So when black people who live vicariously through these elite black men see a black man being brought down, it's not that they want justice. It's that they want that their fantasy is ruined. It's that their fantasy, the thrill is gone. And they want to live vicariously through these men. So they need to see them living with as much impunity as the white men do. But again, that's white privilege. And you think you're fighting for privilege, but you're not fighting for privilege. You're trying to infect yourself with the pathology. And that's why you need to stop saying white privilege. Because if it's privilege, it's something we want. Who doesn't want privilege? I would like to have privileges here at Q4 Radio. I'd like to be able to come in here when I want to, play whatever music I want to, with the cuss words and everything. I'd like to be able to cuss on air. There's all kind of things I want to do. I would replace this seat and get a more comfortable seat. Not with my own money, but have Q. I wish I had more privileges here. Who doesn't want privileges? Hell, I wish the radio station was closer to my house. For my own good, to hell with everybody else. Who doesn't want privileges? But when we look at a pathological people and we want to behave and be able to move and navigate the world exactly like them, you're not fighting for privilege. You're fighting to infect yourself with the same pathology. And nobody wants pathology. So if we start saying, wow, this white man in power is trying to empower this white male child, to go out and victimize more people. That's not white privilege on anybody's behalf. That's white pathology. And then it makes those men, the what about gang, those black men and women who want to mimic, who who want to embody, who want to fully integrate with Europeans, it makes us understand who they are and how they relate to the rest of us. You don't say, wow, that brother's privileged, that brother's pathological. That sister's privileged, that sister's pathological. Trump has been accused of rape by over 20, almost, he's coming up on, I think it's 28 women have accused Trump of rape. And Trump snitched on himself by talking about how he literally says, I sexually assault women. I grab women and just start kissing them. I can't control myself. I grab them and I'm a celebrity. They let me do it. I can't even repeat his words because, you know, the federal FCC will come down on this station. And Lord knows, Q4, we ain't got money to fight no lawsuit. We barely got enough to stay on the air. So support Q4. Support the Bro Diallo Show. And he's president. Is that white privilege or is that white pathology? And the majority of white women voted for him. He wouldn't be in office. White women are voting for rapists, white rapists. Is that what we want in our community? We got it. I mean, a lot of black women still support R. Kelly. We got that in our community, but is that what we want to continue to go after? So the what about gang, and another thing I always say, the what about gang are not rape advocates. They are not anti-rape advocates. They are not even social justice or criminal justice advocates. They're mimicking white men advocates. Hey, Bill Cosby got as much money as a white man. Why doesn't he get the same type of injustice? Why doesn't he get the same consideration? And I say he did, actually. He actually did. Bill Cosby got white justice. Bill Cosby been raping dozens of women for decades. That's white pathology. He actually did get the benefit of white pathology, but he pushed it beyond. He pushed it to his breaking point. He got ignorant, arrogant, and he admitted on record, yes, I secure these drugs. He said, go read the deposition, the sealed deposition that they reopened. He said, I secure these drugs. I buy these drugs for the specific intent to induce some type of state of unawareness or euphoria in women. He literally says, I buy date rape drugs, I use date rape drugs. He admitted to it, but he thought it was a sealed deposition. See, Bill Cosby really believed in white folks. He believed everything white folks told him. He believed that the white man, when the white man said, okay, I'm done being racist, I'm going to be equal. And he came to the black community and said, listen, the white man gave us our freedom. And y'all didn't keep up your end of the bargain. Said there's no more racism. How do you know there's no more racism, Bill Cosby? The white man told me there was no more racism. So Bill Cosby realized the white man ain't the most honest person in the world right now. Because the white man also said, okay, if you just speak openly on this deposition, allow us to record your words and create these transcripts, and we will seal this deposition. Never see the light of day. Bill Cosby's like, all right, boss. And he believed the white man. That the white man was going to seal that deposition. And when he went into the courtroom, and he was like, his lawyer was like, that's inadmissible evidence. Judge, that's a sealed, secret deposition. That's inadmissible. Throw it out. By your law, you promised me. And the white man was like, hey, I guess you don't know about me. What you ain't heard. Heard the word. You ain't heard about me. My reputation does not precede me. Just because I say it does not make it so. So maybe Bill Cosby, just like he's realizing a sealed deposition. Well, I have this prominent black woman who came up in segregation, fought through the system, got her doctorate degree, and went on to the heights of society. And she told me something one time. Wealthy, prominent black woman. She's one of them behind-the-scenes black women, helping black people and moving and shaking things, but don't want to be public. I guess she don't want to end up like Fred Hampton or Asada. But, you know, we got some black folks out here doing the do that we don't even know about. Anyway, this black woman told me something. And this is going, again, more crassness. It's an ugly world. I don't know how to use pretty words to talk about an ugly world. So she told me, no is for niggas. No is for niggas. Meaning that white people, all these laws, all these regulations, all these limitations, all these treaties and all these amendments, all this stuff that's written down on paper, the white elites do not apply any of it. They don't give a damn about none of it. They make laws, break laws, take laws, snake laws. They don't give a damn. So it's really silly for black people to be beating each other over the head about which one of us are best at adhering to white folks' rules. We need to come up with our own, like Dr. John Henry Clark said, our Supreme Court should be our kitchen tables. Where regardless of what they say, we need to determine our interests, what's in our interest, and what is in our interest to cooperate or to at least feign cooperation with the system, and when it is our prerogative and our interest to go against it and even break their laws. And we don't even respect their laws, we respect their capacity to enforce their laws. But we really, many of us, our morality is grounded in them, Judeo-Christian, constitutional, and all that nonsense. But they never obey their own laws. Look at Trump is just, using the Constitution as toilet paper, as a a doormat. And ain't nobody doing nothing about it, even though Pelosi, Nancy put impeachment off the table, Pelosi. So anyway, the What About gang, I want to congratulate y'all. It seems like Jeffrey Epstein is going to face white justice. He's going to be treated like Bill Cosby. And he even's trying to call double jeopardy. It's very likely that Jeffrey Epstein could have, Slobodan Milosevic, the war criminal, and the day he was supposed to go to trial, he had this mysterious stroke, this mysterious heart attack in his cell, literally minutes before, I think, because, Jeffrey Epstein got enough dirt to bring down the Democrats and the Republicans. It was Trump and Bill Clinton was riding on his Lolita Express private jet, going to his underage brothels. And a lot of these pedophiles, these wealthy pedophiles, if you read a book, Disposable People, I'm going to have to bring that book in. I actually had pulled it off my shelf. I wanted to read some sections on that about modern day slavery. Disposable People is a really good book. You should read Disposable People. But in that, they talk about these brothels that have children as young as 7 or 8 in these brothels in many of the Buddhist countries. And many of these countries with the religions that y'all think are so progressive, Buddhism, Hinduism, y'all got all these Buddhist symbols, and y'all got all these herbs, these exotic Eastern herbs, and many of these countries that believe in reincarnation, they are some of the most racist and anti-human religions. But y'all only look at the surface. Yes, if you do something wrong in life, karma will get you. No, that's not what karma is. Well, and I can't get into that because my time ain't on my side. But let me just say, a lot of these pedophiles go overseas to do their stuff because it's like they go to Jamaica, they go to Africa, children aren't protected. They go to Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Singapore even sometimes, the Buddhist countries, and they go to these brothels. And they get on these private jets where they don't even have to get a plane ticket and all of that. They can travel incognito. And they say Bill Clinton himself has gone, it ain't no Pizzagate. Pizzagate is bull. Why the hell would rich white people go to some grimy basement for little kids when they can go to luxury hotels to rape children? And let me say one more thing about this Pizzagate nonsense. Y'all, everybody was up and on with this QAnon Pizzagate stuff. And they had some white boy take a 12 gauge and run up in this pizza parlor and say, to rescue the kids out of the basement. Go look up Pizzagate. And there's still black people to this day that are like, yeah, Pizzagate is real. And they were saying that these young children were being kidnapped by white elites and trafficked. And they used this basement to store kids, to traffic the kids, and to even rape the kids in the basement. So this guy gets a 12 gauge and travels to Washington, D.C. to kick in the door of this pizza parlor and shoots the door to try to rescue the children. And the place didn't even have a basement. And I'm asking, where are the 12 now? You hear this conspiracy that a pizza parlor was kidnapping children and trafficking them. But then you have concrete evidence on the government elites are kidnapping children at the border, Honduran children, Panamanian children, Mexican children, that children at the southern border are being kidnapped and are being trafficked. And there is evidence that many of those children fall into sexual slavery to pedophiles, where are the shotguns now? Why ain't y'all kicking in the door of the NSA, kicking in the door of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, or kicking in the door of the White House? Because now you got evidence. Y'all love chasing these stupid stories of, oh, Pizzagate and elite child pedophile ring. But when y'all get hard, concrete evidence of pedophiles, y'all don't do nothing. Y'all full of it. But I digress. One more thing before we talk about representation and Neo-Tokenism. A$AP Rocky is in jail. A$AP Rocky is a rapper. He's from the A$AP crew. They got this whole crew of rappers out of New York, the A$AP, or A$AP Ferg and A$AP, Chicken Wing. Now, all these guys got A$AP before their name. A$AP Rocky went overseas to make some coin and assaulted some good upstanding European folks, and they put him in the jail. And A$AP Rocky is saying that his jail conditions are subhuman. He said that he's in a toilet. He said they're giving him inedible food, and he's in this isolated cell. A$AP Rocky said that he's living under inhumane condition. And then all these other rappers, Lil Yachty, Tyler the Creator, all these other prominent millionaire rappers are coming out saying they're going to boycott Sweden. Not because Sweden has all the wealth of Africa in its bank vaults, all the gold, all of the African dictators. Ooh, boy, I could punch this microphone. All the African dictators like Mobutu, even your beloved Mugabe, all the African leaders who have raped the African continent take their money and their wealth out of Africa instead of reinvesting it and put it in Swedish banks. But that's not enough for all these black artists like Tyler the Creator or Lil Yachty, Schoolboy Q, are saying they're going to boycott Sweden for locking up A$AP Rocky. And all the dirt that Sweden is the bank of the empire. Y'all know about it. Even people who don't know nothing else, they all know about Swiss banks, Swiss bank accounts. Even the rappers rap about, I got my money overseas, offshore. The Swiss bank accounts is what you got when you're doing crime on an international scale, when you raping economies. But the rappers are now saying they're never going to perform in Sweden again. They're never going to perform. Because A$AP Rocky is in a Swedish prison in inhumane conditions. And A$AP Rocky, I say, keep his ass. They can have him. Why do I say this? Because I'm not as good as y'all. My heart isn't as good as y'all. I just don't have the pro-blackness. If I could get y'all level of pro-blackness where I could care about an A$AP Rocky and give a damn about it, I wish I was like y'all. I'm just not pro-black like that. My pro-blackness comes with, just like your phone contract, terms and conditions. There's certain base level racial solidarity I need you to have before I can't just be, I've never been in a one-sided relationship in my life. I've been in many lopsided relationships, but I've never been in a one-sided relationship in my life. I've never been attracted to women who treat other people that way, and I've never had game enough to keep a woman around doing that. So I say, that A$AP, and also because A$AP is a high-profile case, they got him in solitary confinement also. And he claims that he's exposed to diseases and he's in a toilet. Oh, poor A$AP. But my tear ducts are bone dry. I'm trying to keep him laughing at his punk ass. But then you say, why Diallo hate on A$AP? And some of y'all already know Diallo hates everything. I'm the Grinch of Pan-Africanism. But here's why. A$AP came out in 2016 as All Lives Matter. He said that he feels that all lives matter. He stood in solidarity with Bill Cosby. And when they asked him about Ferguson, he said, I quote, I don't want to talk about no effing Ferguson and shite because I don't live over there. I live in effing Soho and Beverly Hills. I can't relate. He was going around, and many celebrities came out. Y'all forget this. Remember Lil Boosie? Boosie said black African Americans are the worst race of people. African Americans are, he said, you know, it's black people hiding in the bushes trying to jank you, trying to steal your car. But he said black people are the worst people. And y'all love Boosie because he makes those ignorant ass videos eating toxic food in the mansion. And y'all forgave Boosie. Y'all run out and listen to Boosie in his squeaky ass, irritating ass voice. Remember what's that? Kevin Gates. I don't know where to start with Kevin Gates. Is this his incest, his pedophilia, or the fact that he also said the police, when they have to kill black people because they never know what they're gonna do. He says that even though he's been locked up every other day by the police, he's been brutalized by the police. He said, well, what do you expect from the police? Black people don't know how to act. We got it coming. Kevin Gates literally said, black people, we bring police brutality on ourselves. But he threw on a kufi and put his girlfriend, cousin, wife, whatever, in a hijab, and all of a sudden y'all like, oh, relationship goals. And now y'all love Kevin Gates. So, and do I need to say Jay-Z, Kanye? I mean, just list a celebrity. Beyonce comes out 1 minute, she's bowed down, bitches, I'm better than y'all. And the next day she's like, oh, black girl empowerment, doing. And then Beyonce can go when the NFL was under scrutiny for allowing years and years of domestic abuse and racism in the NFL. She come there and does the NFL halftime show in Black Panther cosplay, and all is forgiven. So y'all love these celebrities, and I don't want to get between y'all and y'all celebrities because y'all gonna trample me every time. So just in my little dark, miserable corner, I'm like, forget that dude, let him rot. Yes, I am not pro-black. I am pro-black. I'm pro-black. So I'm not pro-black for black people who are not pro-black. I'm only pro-black people. And like I said, there's layers to my stuff. Y'all are so good. Y'all see a black face and y'all automatically feel empathy and solidarity and unity. I'm not that good. I'm not that angelic. Maybe because Jesus Christ is not my Lord and Savior, and Allah and Muhammad is not my prophet. Maybe because I am a godless atheist that I just don't have that level of agape love. If I could cuss, I'd say F that N. F them. But I don't say that because I ain't trying to get in trouble. But when you got some rich Negro, and he's got contracts with Gucci and Louis Fendi, he's in Beverly Hills, and while black people are suffering in the streets, he said he got mad at the reporter and barked at the reporter and said, quit coming to me with that. Why is everybody asking me about Black Lives Matter and asking me about Ferguson, Missouri, and asking me about police? I don't care none. He said, I'm above all that. He didn't say it was above him. He said he was above it. He said all lives matter. And by any black person that says all lives matter, doesn't matter to me. Do with him as you will. And don't come to me, oh, it's about the principalities. Because my principle is African solidarity, Pan-African solidarity. So no, it's just to support him on principle. No, I abandon him on principle. I discard him on principle. I slam dunk 360, slam dunk, eyes closed, Jordan dunked that fool in the garbage can of history on principle. Can he be redeemed? Yes. But you know who he likes to hang? He claims he hangs out with Rod Stewart. He hangs out with white celebrities. Let the people from Beverly Hills, let Beverly Hills march for him. Let them rich scumbags, parasites in Beverly Hills march for ASAP. And all the other rappers that come out on him, come out in his defense. And my wife actually likes Tyler, the Creator. I'm going to tell on him. Wait till I tell Dr. Mingo, Tyler, the Creator. And it just really makes me want to vomit. All these rappers coming out talking about how they're going to boycott Sweden. With all the dirt, all the money, Sweden's wealth is blood, is African blood. They might as well have African and Native and Southeast Asian blood in their bank vaults, because that's where all that wealth comes from. Europe is a rock with no natural resources. The only reason it is the wealthiest segment, wealthiest location in the world is because they went around the world stealing everybody else's stuff. But the rappers don't give a damn about that. These rich rappers make me sick. Even how they were talking about when The day Nipsey Hussle got shot, 6 other black people got shot. But they truly believe I'm a rich black, so I should be exempt. They ain't down with us, so I ain't down with them. Sound like a personal problem. He said all lives matter. I say ASAP life doesn't matter to me. Keep at ASAP. And my main reason for doing this is because what incentive do we give for people to, if we respond to the people who race traders the same way we respond to our freedom fighters, what's the point? If we respond to race traders the same way we respond to race loyalists, why not? What incentive do we give to our people for not betraying us? What reward do we give to black people who hold loyalty to us when they secure the bag? What incentive do we have? Because whether you are a backstabbing race trader or you've been representing and fighting for us your whole life, if we go as hard in the paint for Floyd Mayweather as we went for Muhammad Ali, if we love Mayweather as much as we have Ali, what incentive did Ali have to sacrifice his life, health, and wealth for black people? So I'm that one black dude that say if you are a black person, whether you are a proletariat or one of the black elite, if you show solidarity, then I'm down for you. I don't care what folks. If white folks say you did something and you say you didn't do it, I'm gonna take your word over theirs. We have to start doing this. And y'all who want to integrate with white people, be equal to white people, do it. Look at Edward Snowden. Brilliant white boy. The white boy didn't hold it. He betrayed America, and America's like, do what you will with him. Look at Julian Assange. White man. They were like, oh, he broke the code. If you have no code, you have no culture. So if there's no code saying that a black man at the height when the black community is under siege can go on major media and disrespect our race, disrespect our struggle, distance himself from his people, and then when he gets in some trouble, we ready to start boycotting and protesting on their behalf? Nuh-uh. Fire burn. Burn fire. Fire burn ASAP Rocky. Keep ASAP Rocky in that Sweden prison as long as you want, white boy. He's y'all. Do with him as you will. Anybody that's willingly sells themselves into slavery, who voluntary slaves, who willingly and enthusiastically become property of another race, I ain't got no use for them. But moving on. As I said, it's about 10 minutes after the hour. Actually, I got a watch, I got a clock, and I got the computer, and all three of them have different times. So it's between, let's just say it's 12 minutes after the hour. You're listening to Q4 Radio, AM 1680. You can also listen on the TuneIn app, iTunes Radio, and of course, as always, anywhere in the world at q4.org. And I have to see if you can still listen on the Facebook page. I'm always so sick. Man, Facebook, just mine. But anyway, let's go. Let's go into the topic. Today's show is titled "Keep ASAP Rocky." Now I'm lying. Today's show is titled "Representation versus Neo-Tokenism." Now, what got me thinking about this issue yet again was they got that Little Mermaid. And I don't know, I thought that when I first saw that, I thought it was Halle Berry. I thought they misspelled Halle Berry's name. I'm not even lying. My wife watches this show, Grownish. She likes Grownish and Blackish. So, she likes Grownish and Blackish. And so I know the girl, I know her face, because she's on that show, Grownish. Halle Bailey. But when I first saw that Halle Bailey, I saw the headline, and I didn't put the name to the face. And I'm like, why they got Halle Berry? Ain't she like 50 years old? Why are y'all celebrating this mess? But anyway, so it's a young, pretty girl, little dreadlocks, all that. But anyway, everybody, white folks is pissed, and black folks is celebrating that the Little Mermaid is going to be a black girl. And I know, I mean, get ready. I mean, they gonna make everybody black. Cause after what y'all did for Black Panther, giving Disney, I know, poor Walt Disney. Y'all know Walt Disney was a racist. He's from my part of town, actually. I have a good friend, Rip T. Terrence. What's up, Rip? His grandmother actually lived in a house, and they later found out that for a time, Walt Disney, when he was growing up in Kansas City, or came up in Kansas City, actually lived in that house. And they had all these archaeologists and historians uh, coming to the house, and they were hoping to find some artifact or some lost artifacts from Walt Disney. 'Cause for the time, he's not from Kansas City, but he lived. He moved to Kansas City when he was a kid, so he kind of came up in Kansas City. And even if you look it up now, they actually have a home on this map. Wow. So just off 31st Street in the hood. Well, it wasn't a hood back then. When Walt Disney was a kid, that was a white neighborhood. We act like we the first group of black folks to go through gentrification and expulsion. Black people been getting gentrified and expelled from communities for decades. But I digress. Walt Disney was a hardcore racist. And when he died, he had a terminal illness, so his brain was frozen. He had his central nervous system frozen because he thought that in the future humans will advance in technology to the point where they can take his central nervous system and take his consciousness and download it into a robot or a computer simulation. So Walt Disney will return. And I know he's gonna be pissed. He's gonna be pissed to be seeing black little mermaids and that little frog princess girl and Black Panther, all these people, because he hated black folks. But black folks, we see it as a win. Representation. Now, little black girls get to go to the movie and see a little natural-haired black woman, or young black woman, and Holly Bailey. They get to see all this, and this representation everywhere. It's just like all this positive representation. From a black president to a black woman who is a general of the Marine Corps to a black little mermaid. All this representation, because representation matters. Now, I never really had much to say about that representation matters nonsense. I've always thought it was nonsense. But I figure, let me fall back on it, whatever, because nothing makes me more upset than to be in the grocery store or somewhere and I see a little black girl holding a white doll. So yes, I would like to see black children see themselves and reflect and interact with themselves. Oh, I don't have my ring on. Oh, I know I felt naked. So, in that sense, representation is cool. Like, if I had a daughter, she'd have all black dolls. But unless, if she got into Wonder Woman, I wouldn't want to get her a white Wonder Woman. I just get her the Wonder Woman white. You like Wonder Woman, but I would try to play with Storm doll, but I don't even see really cool Storm dolls. There's some good ones out there. You know what I mean? So black folks, we start to go representation crazy. So I have to tell black folks something. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news because it's getting out of hand now. I understand white people being mad about Little Mermaid because they're just the psychopathic racial personality. They're aggressive. The Iceman's inheritance. But I understand their outrage, but I don't understand our celebration. At best, we should be indifferent. Because representation, I hate to tell you, does not matter. How do I know? Let's look at representation from one angle. What is representation? In this context, it's basically the perception and presence of people in the popular media. It's quality and quantity. The amount of presence, how often do you see us in the popular media, and then how often do you see us in positive roles, uplifting roles in the positive media. And there is this false impression that giving black people positive representation in the media will translate into some level of material positive outcome for African people in the material world. And I don't see that as being the fact. And here's one of my first arguments. Now I've found all this write-ups, all these mainly black women. It's a lot of black women have gotten more into this than black men, I come to find. But I just wanted to I found this definitive article written by a black woman, Paris Page. She's a black journalist. And she wrote basically 5 reasons why representation matters. And I'd like to go down her list. But before I go to that list, there's something I'd like you to think about on this representation nonsense. Yeah, and I say it's nonsense. I'm not for representation. But hopefully I'll make my case. But first ask yourself in this issue of representation, what demographic gets the majority of representation? What group gets the most? What group is not only represented, well represented, but overrepresented in positive images, positive propaganda images? You can start with white males. White males have the largest quantity of representation and the highest quality of representation in the popular media, in pop culture. And they're the best compensated for those who give that representation. So Superman, Batman, the most handsome man, what is that magazine that does the most handsome man? I read Men's Health magazine from time to time. It's always some muscly white man is on the cover. They're represented as policemen, as judges, as politicians, as CEOs, as superheroes, race car drivers, athletes. Even they went around the world and did a survey several years ago. They went all over the world. And they said, who is the greatest boxer? Who is the most well-known boxer in the world? And you know what the people all over the world said? Rocky Balboa. They didn't say fictional. They meant actual. Rocky Balboa is better known than Muhammad Ali. So white men get the absolute best representation. You can't get better quality or higher quantity of representation in the mainstream media than white men, white boys. White boys are not starved for positive role models. And what is the outcome? How has that representation served white males? Now, number one, they have all the money. That's one. Okay, they got more money than anybody else. What else? I'm waiting. What else do they have that any of us would desire? Amos Wilson said, in order for a minority, i.e. white people, in order for a global minority to rule over a global majority, that global minority must turn the world upside down. It must invert our understanding and our view of everything. Meaning that the people who are most criminal must be seen as the most innocent, the most law-abiding, whereas the people who are the number one victims of crime must be seen as the criminals. He said the people who are most violent in the world must be seen as the peace givers, as the civilizers, as the settlers. Whereas the people who are the biggest victims of violence must be seen as the predators, as the super predators, as the most violent. People who are most immoral, the people who lack any level of morality, must be viewed as the people who determine and define what morality is and impose morality on the world, as the law bringers, as the law givers, where the people who are the victims of immorality must be seen as the hoes, the pimps, the drug dealers. And it goes on in every sector. The people who are most dishonest must be seen as the most truthful, whereas the people who dwell in truth and justice must be seen as the liars, the pimps, the drugs, the hustlers. And if you do not invert this vision, If you do not invert people's understanding, if you do not indoctrinate people in such a way, the majority will overwhelm and displace the minority. Even the founding fathers would understood this. That's why enslavers will talk about freedom and human equality. All men are created equal, while you have, literally, you have the so-called founding fathers. I call them the founding rapists, the founding pedophiles, the founding murderers. But the founding father works too. The people you call fathers are the murderers, and the people who are accused and locked up for murder are often the true fathers of civilization. And this inverted understanding and this inverted vision must be preserved. Nothing threatens this system more than reality and truth. Nothing more so than understanding. Because they don't have enough bullets or bombs or submarines or aircraft carriers to subdue the world. So they have to depend on a large portion of the world subduing itself. And then the few of us who do not fall for the okie doke, they have more than enough bullets for us because they can employ the people who fall for the okie doke to police the rest of us. So when we talk about representation, you're talking about a society that's based on an inverted vision, on an upside down world. You want representation within an upside down, within a lie. You basically are begging for the system to tell the same lies about us that it tells about itself. But let's go into this young black woman, Paris Page. 5 reasons why representation matters. And these lists are all over. These lists are all over. And these articles, there are so many of them. But this is just one I picked because I wanted something, because even white folks are talking about representation now. They're pro-representation. So she says, number 1, everyone should have characters or image they can relate to. It's part of who we are and how we understand ourselves. Now, she's right. When you see something that looks like you, you relate to it. All animal species do it. I have a dog. I walk my dog, and there could be another dog walking. When dogs see people, they respond one way. When they see other dogs, they respond another way. When they see a reflection of who they are, they recognize it. Primates do it especially. But other mammals, species, when they see other animals, when we see ourselves. But she said in that, first on the list, everyone should have characters or image they can relate to. And then she said it's part of who we are and how we understand ourselves. So, the whole representation matters is not us representing ourselves, but us being represented by someone else. So if Walt Disney is the one giving us the representation, they're also the ones giving us the understanding of ourselves. They will show us an image saying, hey, look at the Black Panther. Look at these powerful Africans. Look at these beautiful Africans. Look at these technological Africans. Look at these assertive Africans. And what do they do with all that power, technology, assertiveness? They go and offer it up willingly to a racist, disrespectful UN. They walk and say, go rewatch. I'm sure it's on YouTube by now. Go rewatch the end credit scene. The Black Panther literally walks up and says, we have all this hidden technology. We're ready to open ourselves to the world. And they didn't go to other African countries. They didn't say, let's have an African conference. They didn't go to the hood. They went to the hood to set up a charity, but like I said, charity. Bill and Melinda Gates set up charities in the hood. John D. Rockefeller set up charities. Hitler donated to charity. And if you understand the whole charity hustle, they have this thing called evaluations that must be done by learned scholars and statisticians. So what you give is not important, because often what is given, you have to measure the outcomes of what is given. But we'll talk about the not-for-profit industrial complex some other time. So anyway, when we see ourselves, Walt Disney, multinational corporations represent us. Thus, multinational corporations represent us. thus they can embrace our culture. Yes, we are told to embrace ourselves, but it would be a lot more comforting to see ourselves in more character portrayals that reflect every culture. Representation within an alien culture helps you embrace your culture. No, it doesn't help you embrace a culture, but again, it helps you embrace the alien's culture. I mean, this doesn't even make sense. And the image she uses for this, I'll share this link, is the black stormtrooper, the black guy. And I like this guy, he's a great actor. But they show this black dude dressed up like a stormtrooper in the Star Wars movie. And then they show this little black kid dressed up like a stormtrooper. And do you know where the stormtroopers come from? Look up Nazi stormtroopers. So you literally have a black man dressed up as a fictional representation of Nazis. And then a bunch of little black kids go up and dress up, and I'm a stormtrooper, I'm a stormtrooper. When the stormtrooper was the Luftwaffe, the highest ranking shock troop, because they had this system of war called the Blitzkrieg. And it's called lightning war, where the Nazis had developed this technology for subduing populations, where they just come with overwhelming force. First they bomb you, then they send in the heavy artillery, and then the tanks, and then they come with the stormtroopers, come in and kill off anybody that escaped the bombing and strafing runs and the artillery shells. That's what the stormtroopers are in history. Now black people see a black stormtrooper, and we got our kids running around talking about they want to be stormtroopers. And then there's number 3. There are stories that are missing. That's number 3. Number 1, everyone should see characters, images, helps to embrace our cultures, and there are stories that are missing. Without representation of all genders, races, sexes, sexuality, body types, there are stories that are missing. Without equal representation, people will feel like they aren't seen or heard. But here's the thing, the white story is missing. When you look at white media, when you look at white history, when you look at white representation, like Common is representing black folks in this movie called Hunter Killer. And the whole movie is a damn lie. It is pro-Pentagon, pro-war, pro-American propaganda. So we're literally saying we're being left out of a lie. So we want to be included in the lie. And it's a difference between being included in a lie and being told the truth. So there's stories that are missing, yes. And even white folks' stories are missing because nobody's story is being told. Then it says, number 4, it's realistic. In the media, representation can often be misinterpreted, and it's more realistic to see characters and people who embody us. You know, when I was a kid, and I used to read comics, I was a big-time Marvel fan. I used to read Justice League and a few DC titles, but Marvel was my thing, and the mutants were my thing. And they had, a fair share of black mutants, prominent black mutants, even for a long time, and before all this representation rhetoric was even popular, before social media, Storm in the 80s and 90s took over control. I mean, the X-Men were not only led by a black character, but a black female character. Well ahead of his time. Y'all sure love Stan Lee. Maybe he's earned some of that love. But I always thought to myself, mutants is basically randomly occurring mutation. And if it's just randomly occurring in population, then the majority, I always thought to myself, even as a kid, the majority of the mutants should be Asian because the majority of the people in the world are Asian. And there were a few, there was like Silver Samurai, he was a mutant, and Hishiro, the Japanese mutant. And there was like a communist super team, like the Russian Bear and whatever. There were a few Asian mutants, but the vast majority of mutants were white. So that was unrealistic to me because I always thought if you have randomly occurring mutation, the majority of the mutants should be Asian, after that of African descent, and so on and so forth. But that's realistic. But again, you want realism in a fantasy world. Western media is nothing but lies. And I'm not just talking about the movies and the science fiction. I'm talking about the news. I'm talking about the history books. I'm talking about academia. They lie. They lie on themselves. And we expect them to be honest and show an accurate representation of us when they don't even give us an accurate representation of themselves. And then number 5, because everyone deserves to see themselves in their heroes. It teaches self-love, and it feels damn good to see and read about someone like you. This is true. I can't even lie. When I was a kid, I really liked the Luke Cage. They used to call him Power Man. We didn't call him Luke Cage, but he was Power Man. And not only was Luke Cage, he was an ex-prisoner, and he spoke ghetto slang, and he didn't go off and fight aliens. He stayed in the community. I really liked the Power Man comics, except when they hooked him up with Power Fist. They messed up his character. Then they married him off to some white woman, you know. But early in the Luke Cage, he would fight these other black sinister dudes, and he, you know, talk about sweet. I really liked Power Man. I liked the Black Panther. Because the Black Panther of the comic book is not the Black Panther of the movie. The Black Panther of the movie, the Black Panther of the comic book, if you read the comic books back in the 80s and 90s, he actually got kicked out of the Avengers because the Avengers found out that he did not support the Avengers. He only joined the Avengers because he thought that the Avengers were a threat to African sovereignty because they operated outside of the border. So he literally joined the Avengers to collect intelligence and to spy on them. And the nation of Wakanda had these large underwater war machines all around the coast of the United States because he knew that the United States was an imperial power and he did not trust the United States at all. So he set up these war machines so that at any moment they could come up to the surface and destroy all the major cities in America. The Black Panther was a black militant in the comics. I don't know where he is now, but if you go back and read the comics from the 90s, the mid 90s to the early 2000s, I really loved seeing those heroes. But the problem is, if you base your self-love, if my self-love, now, even though I greatly enjoyed those comics, I loved those stories, and how the Panther was so cold-blooded, and the Panther just didn't, and Panther used to have this bodyguard. This guy was like 10 feet tall, because generally the Panther would wear suits. He didn't wear his vibranium costume. So he had an entourage and his bodyguard, it wasn't he had the Dura Milaje, but there was this giant guy who wore traditional African garb, and he would wear carry this technological spear. He was like 8 feet tall, and he just hated white folks. And Black Panther was always having to tell him to fall back and chill. It was just a wonderful run of those comics. You know, but anyway. I've never rooted my self-love in those comics because if your self-love is based on representation in your oppressor's media, not only can they invoke that self-love, if they give it, they can take it away. So we shouldn't give them enough power to plead to them to offer us representation. It's to also give them power over us. We should be immune and indifferent to their media and to our representation in their media. And I know we're not there, but that should be the goal we strive for. And so representation does matter, but not in the positive sense that we believe. So I made a list to tell you what really happens when black people are represented in white media. Number 1, representation matters, but let me tell you how it matters, how it impacts us. Number 1, representation pacifies us. Now, this is my list of what representation truly does. Representation pacifies us. It gives us a false image of inclusion and progress. Representation. You turn on, I remember when I used to watch The Cosby Show. My grandmother, I was raised by my grandmother because my father was in federal and state penitentiaries, and my mother was addicted to drugs. So my grandmother had to step up, and I knew lots of people. Oh, if there was a Jesus, I would thank him for grandparents. Grandparents held it down in the 80s during the so-called crack epidemic and mass incarceration. My family is just like a textbook of all white, hostile redlining, all of that. My great-grandparents owned their homes, and my grandparents lived in the housing project. Because black folks went from home ownership to projects, and then we got more in subprime or the pre-subprime era. We got more homes, and now many of us are moving back into substandard housing or rental or public housing. The same cycle. We act like we're, like I said, I don't know why we think we're the first black population of black people to be gentrified. But anyway, it pacifies us because even though we were under the boot of oppression, every night we turn on the TV and we see Bill Cosby doing that old herky-jerky, goofy-ass dance in the opening credit of the Cosby Show. And Cosby never talked about crack. Cosby didn't even deal with racism. There was one episode where Theo had a joint in his pocket, and the joint wasn't even his. It was his friend stuck it into his pocket. And we see black lawyers and black doctors, and then Bill Cosby, after the real Bill Cosby, showing us a black doctor and black lawyer when he got his doctorate, because he is a doctor in physical education, whatever that means. But he has an honorary doctorate. But then he comes and tells us, oh, we can be anything we want to be. When I got rats and black molds at my grade school, and I got to literally walk through a minefield of discarded needles and gang shootouts, but I can be anything I want to be. You're lying. So it pacified me with delusions and false promises. You know, Bill Cosby lived in Brooklyn Heights in the 80s. Do you know what was going on in Brooklyn in the 80s? He could have put that family in Strivers Row in Harlem. He could have put that family in Bushwick. Hell, anywhere up and down Eastern Parkway. But Brooklyn Heights, over the 7th Avenue, that was the white affluent area. They lived in a predominantly white community. In the historic New York City, when there were even a lot of prominent black, like I said, they could have put him in Strivers Row, even in Staten Island, out in Sag Harbor. There were many historical black communities of affluent black folks. Bill Cosby pacified, and positive images tend to pacify us. Delusions of inclusion. So representation pacifies. Use that hashtag. Also, representation distorts. You see all these NBA players and these rappers, you think black people got banked. There are white people that think that black people are rich. And not even just white. I had a young Sudanese refugee who worked for me. And she said when she was in Sudan, they thought every black person was Oprah, living like Oprah and Michael Jordan. So when you got these black people in the media, it gives a distortion. Either you're a criminal, either you're in the drugs, you're living in abject poverty, or you're Michael Jordan. And it doesn't show the masses of the black proletariat, the black working class. It's like when I grew up in the project, 90% of the black people in the project were not in gangs, didn't sell drugs or anything, but my community was called drug infested and gang infested. And if you know anything about community dynamics and demographics, it don't take, you can have a community of 10,000 people, and it can take, you can have 10 people. 1% of that population can mark that whole neighborhood. My housing project literally had hundreds of units, and maybe there were 4 to 5 units where there was ongoing criminal activity, and they treated us all like criminals. Or you can have the impression that all black people are doing, it's all good. We're in a post-racial society. Look at Obama. So it distorts us. Because when they show us in the media as being either all good or all bad, you're either some triumphant black striving hero. What's that stupid movie, Hidden Figures? They should have called that movie Hidden Niggas, because they hid the niggas in the basement. Not Hidden Figures. The figures weren't hidden. The figures were out front. It was the black folks that were hidden. But whatever. So we're all this, you're either... Boots Riley said, women could either be saints, hoes, or skeezers. There was no balance. So representation distorts. Representation pacifies. Representation manipulates. They can literally use their media. Bobby E. Wright said, in most countries, when there is an uprising, when there is a rebellion, the first thing they do is shut down the universities. He said in America, when black people rebel, the first thing they do is hand out scholarships, because they know having us represented in their institutions also prevents radicalism. You look at the HBCUs, and all these black people love HBCUs, when HBCUs are like, again, more crass language, hide your kids, hide your wife, because I'm going to say it, nigger factories. Gil Scott-Heron wrote a whole book The Negro colleges. Dale Jones says, I don't want no more Negroes. So stop sending them to the Negro colleges to be trained up to be Negroes. Historically. And when you look at the black people, because a lot of people come to me and be like, oh, Kwame Ture went to a HBCU. Yes. And when he wanted to fight for the people, he had to leave campus. The school didn't support him in his resistance. And they only circle back and embrace them when they become popular in history. But when they were in the midst of the struggle. So representation manipulates. They can get black people to read B.F. Skinner. They said they can have us all be beggars. They can make us criminals, or they can make us scholars. By distorting the images, by controlling the representation and controlling our access and presence in their institution. Representation exploits. Hip-hop. Do I need to say more? The white man gets paid off of all of that. When they bring us into their media, into their apparatus, it's open. They get to sell our products all over the world. You got racist neo-Nazis in Russia rapping, using rap music, using black culture, using black movements, breakdancing to promote neo-Nazism. So it exploits our culture when we beg to get in and be shown in their media. And finally, representation distracts. I know black brothers in my own family. They can't tell you nothing about no history, nothing about any international politics. They can't tell you about any of the struggles in the community or even struggles abroad. But they can tell you every single sports statistic. They can tell you the draft, who's going to get traded to what. They can tell you the income and salary and how many units Jay-Z moved on his last album. They hold all this stupid knowledge that is of no use to any of us. So representation distracts. It fills our head up and got us debating whether or not celebrating and fighting with Nazis instead of fighting with Nazis and fighting with fascists and fighting with capitalists to preserve the world's ecosystem. For our human dignity, for our representation. We fighting over a damn Disney mermaid. Representation distracts. So yeah, it matters. Why does representation matter? It matters because it has the great potential to pacify us, to distort our understandings, to manipulate us, exploit us, and distract us. And what really matters, revolution matters, Pan-African matters, liberation matters. And I don't want to spoil your fun. I don't have a daughter, so my sons, I've never seen the Little Mermaid movie. My sons probably are not into that. They're like regular old little smelly little boys. Toy guns and trucks. They're gender conforming little boys. So I don't know, but if my son, my younger son at least, was like, I want to see this mermaid, I'd take him to see the damn mermaid. I took him to see the Black Panther. They love the Black Panther. But what you have to understand about this whole representation nonsense, Dr. Bobby E. Wright said, our education comes from our home. When we're under oppression, systemic societal oppression, then we still need that underground railroad. That underground railroad of analysis, of teaching and understanding. We black children need to be given the armor, the psychological, intellectual armor. Go get that book Without Sanctuary and show them the lynching photos. Don't turn, oh, I don't want to see these images. Black children need to know we are in a hostile climate. The police are there to hurt you. They are not there to enforce the law. They enforce the status quo. So when black folks, when you look at a white person on TV, or like KRS One said in, 89, when you watch television, just keep saying, they're lying to me, they're lying to me. And you can enjoy it. You can play the video games. It's like my sons were over at Dita's house, and they were playing the video games, and Dita's wife came out and was like, yo, look at how they showing these reprehensible images of women. So yeah, play the game, but no, but you know, the way they represent women in these video games, the man comes out in armor and the woman comes out in a metal thong. And the woman's on the battlefield, the man's on the battlefield in these combat boots, and the woman's wearing stiletto high heels on the battlefield. The women are objectified in video games. Play the video games, but understand. Enjoy the Black Panther, enjoy the Black Mermaid, but have an understanding. I can't be distracted by this. This is not where the battlefield is. And my children get representation. They have their representation. Kwame Nkrumah. Fred Hampton, Chairman Fred Hampton. They got all the representation they need. And if your children don't have a steady diet of Fred Hampton, right now my son has a poster of Wise Intelligent on his wall. But Poor Righteous Teacher. So don't ask Disney, CBS, Fox. Your representation is whatever access, whenever you have access to black children, you provide that representation. Everything else is filler. Everything else, their mainstream media should be our background noise. Our mainstream media is our bookshelves. Go out and collect these tapes. Go to YouTube and get the Dr. John Henry Clark and Marimba Ani and Francis Cress Welsing. So yes, our children do need media, and teach black children media analysis. Teach them about the pathology of our oppressors. Because we know if they do get full on representation, what they're going to do? Start acting like white men. You want equality with white men? You want to be equal with white men? Because they got the best representation. You want a black Superman. Y'all want a black James Bond. So representation is actual Neo-Tokenism, and I'm going to close with this. And Neo-Tokenism, it used to be tokenism of the past was just there would be a black person on the surface. There would be a black person up front. You know. But Neo-Tokenism is like, there's like, black people got hip to tokenism. They give a black man a title with no power. They give a black woman a position up front of the company. She sit up front at the reception desk. It's like, oh, she's a token. Black people got hip to that. So then the white man figured out, I don't just need to have her up front. I don't just need to have a black spokesperson. I can have a black CEO. I can have a black general in my military. I can have a black president. I can have a black Supreme Court justice. And actually not just have black people be physically present, but give black people a power and authority within the system, because those black people have been thoroughly indoctrinated and then fully embraced our value system and fully support our agenda. So I can let black people go as far and as deep into my system as I want, and it won't be any material changes for the condition of black people or the status of black people, because the black people we trained up and we trust ourselves enough and we trust our system of indoctrination enough. So that's Neo-Tokenism. You ain't just a token, you are a cog in the machine. So, it used to be, when a white president was elected, he'd have a token position on his cabinet. They get a black man or a black woman to be the undersecretary of, toe jam. The assistant chairwoman of, nose picking. They give a black some like who's doing old school tokenism? Trump. Trump made Omarosa like the subsecretary of media affair outreach. Just a made up title so he could have a black woman standing in the pictures. Now that's old school tokenism. New school tokenism is to make a black man or a black woman attorney general and set them loose with all power and authority of attorney general. And guess what? They locking up black folks and maintaining mass incarceration just as aggressively as the white one did. That's Neo-Tokenism. You ain't just on the surface. You fully embedded all the way to the core, and yet we got the same outcomes as when we were just on the surface. Representation is a call for Neo-Tokenism. It used to be they just would have a black actor. Now they got black writers, black producers, black directors, and even black movie studios showing the same degenerate, backwards ass, empty brain nonsense. You're still not getting revolutionary media when it used to just be a black actor. Neo-Tokenism means that the tokenism goes on. We're not just on the surface. We're at the core of the system, and we still haven't learned to act in our best interest. So, all that being said, Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio, please subscribe to the YouTube page. Share it. Especially share it on Facebook, because I am no longer, ever gonna broadcast on YouTube, on Facebook again. I'm about to part ways with Facebook, so get up with me, man. Follow me on Twitter. I'll just go social media cloud hopping because I don't trust them all, but we gonna do. But anyway, I can't talk about representation without playing Represent by Nas from the classic Illmatic album. So I want to get out of here in enough time to play Represent. I will be back Friday morning. I'll be here next week. After that, I don't know if I'll be able to do it for a week because I'm headed to New York City Headed to New York City for the week, and my son, he's overseas, and I'm going to pick my son up in New York. He's coming back at JFK, and I want to drive him back. So anyway, next week I'll be in New York City. Holla at your boys. I'm gonna be at Dunwell Donuts, getting me some vegan donuts. I'm gonna be at that new Ethiopian restaurant downtown. I'm gonna be around New York, so holla at me, and I'll let y'all know. Didn't nobody holla at me in when I was in Indianapolis last week. But anyway, no love in Indianapolis. Let's see if we can get some New York love. Bro Diallo gonna be in NYC next week. But let's not worry about that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'll see y'all Friday morning, Q4 Radio, AM 1680, Bro Diallo Show. Please support, please kick in. Please get the word out. Please share it with your friends, families, allies, lovers, and enemies. Bro Diallo Show on Q4 Radio. Represent Nas, Illmatic. Represent. It's real and any day could be your last in the jungle. Get murdered on the humble, none so blessed.